I was talking with a woman in the parish not so long ago who had to put her dog of many years to sleep. It was a terrible grief she was in, and I think a lot of us who've loved a pet can relate. And I told her, I am so sorry. And she said, Father, when I got a dog, I had to sign up for the whole thing. We don't get to opt out of the grief part of having a dog or of being a parent or of anything. When we sign up, we're signing up for the whole thing. I had a funeral not so long ago for a mother of 5 grown kids. And I was privileged to actually be in the room with them in her home where she was dying at the moment that she took her last breath. And the things I heard her adult children saying to her were so beautiful. You've been the best mom we ever could have prayed for. One of the kids said, Mom, you saved us. You saved us. I asked a little later about what they meant by that. And I found out that their dad, who died a long time ago, was abusive. And the county stepped in when they were kids and took them from their family and put them in 5 different foster homes. And their mom extricated herself from that terrible marriage, worked 3 jobs to be able to provide for her kids, and fought to get each one of them back and raised them, and was the mom that they always had prayed for. At her wake, you should have heard people talking about her, how selfless she was, how she poured herself out, laid down her life. Someone said she was a bridge over troubled waters. It's not fair to compare, but you know that I go to a lot of funerals. And I have to tell you, not all of them talk about their mothers like that. Some of them, it's a little more distant and polite. You know, they'll say, yes, Mom was a very good person, they'll say. Or they'll say things like, Mom wasn't really good at expressing her feelings, but, you know, we figured out that she loved us. With a good shepherd, you never have to figure it out. With a good shepherd, you're not wondering, am I loved? Am I cared about? You have no question about that at all. A good shepherd leaves it all on the field. A good shepherd lays themselves down for the one they love. We hear that a good shepherd does not want to die with gas in their tank or money in the bank. They want to leave it all for what matters. The contrast is that the person who's hired for pay might do a good job, but they're different than a good shepherd. They'll be there, maybe be responsible and show up, but when there's trouble, they're not going to stick around. When it's hard, when the sheep are in danger, when some skin might come off their back, they're going to run. A good shepherd never does that. A good shepherd stays with the sheep. So we're obviously being told in the gospel today that Jesus is the high water mark. He's what we're aiming at. If we want to be like the good shepherd, he's showing us it involves giving everything, pouring yourself out. But then the question is, all right, so what does that mean for us though? Because he died to do that. We can't all just die to do that, can we? The church has a phrase to help us understand what our role is in this story, and it's called dying to self. You may have heard that before. Dying to yourself. So you don't actually physically die, but you let go of putting yourself at the center of the story. And it can be a little bit hard to define what dying to self means, so just think about it when you think of someone who dies to themselves, like a mother who dies to herself, a police chief, a mayor, a coach, a father, When you think of any of those roles, somebody living it totally for what they're there for and for others and not for themselves, you can feel how different that is than someone who has mixed motives. It feels like the real way to stay focused on what Jesus wants us to hear today is to realize that life is not a rehearsal for something else. We're not preparing for something right now. We're in it. This is it. There is no other lifetime that we're preparing for. We're doing it right now. So like if you have kids at home, they're not going to be there long. They're not going to be there at the same age next week, never mind 10 years from now. Sometimes we think in decades. When you've got kids at home, a decade changes everything completely. So we have to know we're not rehearsing for family life. This is it. And it'll be gone like that. In our marriage, we can't be rehearsing for like better times ahead. This isn't a really good time, but maybe the next decade will be good. We don't have any promise for the next decade. We don't know that we're not rehearsing for a good marriage. We're in marriage. And we know that our marriage is going to end when one of us dies first. So what are we doing to treat our marriage like the real thing and not the rehearsal? It's true even at work. There's no other person that can do our job when we don't feel like doing it. There's no understudy for us. We're it. We're not preparing for a future that's ahead. We're in it right now. This is where we are. So that's where we wind up getting in touch with this concept of stinginess. Because a lot of us live lives that involve budgeting. We're always trying to budget things. And that's noble. We've got to budget things. We can't just spend like there's no tomorrow. But sometimes budgeting turns into hoarding. And I'm not speaking so much about material things. I'm talking about spiritual things. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because material things decrease when you use them. If there's a gallon of milk in the fridge and you drink some of it, there's less milk afterwards. Material things decrease when you use them. Spiritual things don't. They increase when you use them. So, you know this. If you're patient with someone, if you show someone a lot of patience, later you actually have more patience. You didn't use up all your patience for the day and now it's gone. You actually build your patience by using it. We all know this with family life. When you have another child, you don't run out of love for the older one. When there's another baby coming into the family, you don't have to sit the older child down and say, hey, kiddo, can we have a talk? Mom's having a baby next week, so you're going to have to, live on 50% of the love that you've got now. We're going to have to divide the love in half. So, you just got to That's not how it works. Love expands as you use it. The more loving a person is, the more love they have to give. That's so true with sunshine. When you go to the beach, you don't have to be jealous of the other people on the beach stealing your sunshine from you. It doesn't work like that. You don't say, go home. I took the day off for this. Go home. Stop taking my sun. It doesn't matter if there's one person on the beach or 5,000. Everyone gets the same amount. Spiritual gifts like light and love and energy and generosity, they don't dissipate when you use them. They grow. Material things shrink. So we're being invited to consider if we've been treating our spiritual gifts like milk in the fridge. Like, who finished all the milk? We can't run out of them. They grow the more we use them. So what's your relationship with scarcity? What's my relationship with scarcity? Are you afraid of running out of something? It can show up in material ways, like when you have enough canned goods to feed all of New York City for 10 years and you wonder, why am I doing this? Why do I have so many canned goods? It could be that we're saving enough money in our bank account just in case we live to be 250. Got to be careful. You never know how old I'm going to live. I might live to 200, but that's not true. We may be budgeting our energy because we can't be there for our friend right now because we're so busy at work and the kids and all this stuff is going on. So we budget our energy and our time, not realizing that the more we give to the people we love, the more we have to give. The question is, what would being more like the Good Shepherd look like in my life, in my work, in my marriage, in my parenting, in whatever? Because we know that this is not a rehearsal, it means that any good that we want to do, we've got to do in the moment. We may not pass this way again, so we have to do it now. We can't save gas in the tank for some future that we don't know about. All the choices that we can make to do good have to be done when the opportunity presents itself. Just like that woman said about getting a dog, she had to sign up for the whole thing. When we accepted God's invitation to come to earth, to be born and live this life, we had to sign up for the whole thing. We can't uncheck some of the boxes. I'd like that, but not that. We got to do the whole thing. And we didn't come this far just to give up and say, oh, it's too hard, I can't do it. It's too much for me. We've got to keep moving forward. Maybe Pope Francis is the one who said it best. Crystal clear. He said, spiritual gifts are like leftovers. They don't keep. Whatever you want to do with the gifts God's given you, you got to do it now.